Seoul never truly slept. Not the wealthy districts glowing beneath the rain, not the underground clubs pulsing with violence, and certainly not the empire controlled by one man, Kang Tae-jun. To the public, he was a billionaire chairman, a genius businessman, a man photographed beside politicians and celebrities. But beneath Seoul's luxury towers, he was something far more dangerous. The king of an empire built on fear. Men disappeared at the sound of his name. Entire organizations bowed before him. And yet, for all his power, Kang Tae-jun had not slept peacefully in years, because power came with enemies, and somewhere inside his own empire, someone was waiting for him to fall. Rain poured over Seoul like silver needles. Black luxury cars moved through glowing streets while skyscrapers disappeared into low clouds. Neon lights reflected across wet pavement. Sirens echoed faintly in the distance. Far above the city, inside the top floor of a luxury tower, Kang Tae-jun stood alone, motionless. One hand rested against the floor-to-ceiling glass. The city stretched endlessly beneath him, but his expression remained cold, unreadable. The office behind him was silent except for soft jazz music playing somewhere in the darkness. A whiskey glass sat untouched beside stacks of confidential files. On the marble desk, blood-stained documents, encrypted phones, surveillance photos, a loaded pistol. The empire never slept. Neither did he. The Mafia king Tae-jun slowly loosened his tie. A faint bruise darkened his knuckles, evidence of another violent night. His right-hand man, Min Seok, entered quietly. "The Busan shipment arrived," he reported. "But Director Han says the council meeting cannot wait any longer." Tae-jun did not turn around. "They're getting impatient," Min Seok added carefully. Still silence, then finally, "Let them be impatient." His voice was calm, dangerously calm. Min Seok lowered his eyes. Nobody in the organization feared shouting. They feared quiet. And Kang Tae-jun was always quiet before violence. Inside another part of the tower, Director Han sat at the head of a private dining room. Elegant, controlled, perfectly composed. To outsiders, he looked like a respected businessman. But behind his calm smile lived something colder than rage. Ambition. Several executives sat around him nervously. "The organization needs stability," one man whispered. Han slowly lifted his wine glass. "And stability requires leadership," he replied. The room fell silent, because everyone understood what he truly meant. Tae-jun had become too powerful, too unpredictable, too impossible to control. And men like Director Han feared only one thing: a king they could no longer manipulate. Later that night, Tae-jun entered the private dining room. Every man at the table immediately stood. The atmosphere tightened instantly. He wore an all-black suit. No expression, no visible emotion, only authority. Director Han smiled warmly. "You work too hard," he said. "Sit, eat. Tonight should be peaceful." Tae-jun sat slowly. A server poured whiskey into crystal glasses. Rain hammered softly against the windows behind them. The city glittered beneath the storm. Director Han lifted his drink. "To the future of Hasan Group." The others followed nervously. Tae-jun stared at the amber liquid for one long moment, then drank. Director Han watched carefully. Very carefully. 20 minutes later, Tae-jun's vision blurred. A strange pressure tightened inside his chest. His fingers twitched. The room tilted. Min Seok noticed first. "Boss?" The whiskey glass slipped from Tae-jun's hand. It shattered across the marble floor. Then suddenly, he collapsed. Chairs scraped violently backward. Men shouted. Someone called for medical help. Min-seok grabbed Tae-jun before his head struck the floor. "Call the hospital now!" But across the chaos, Director Han remained seated, watching, calm, almost disappointed it had taken this long. For weeks, Seoul whispered about Kang Tae-jun. Then weeks became months. Months became years. The feared Mafia king never woke up. Doctors called it catastrophic neurological damage. The media called it tragedy. His enemies called it opportunity. But none of them knew the truth. Inside the darkness, Tae-jun was still conscious, unable to move, unable to speak, unable to open his eyes. But he could hear everything. The doctors, the machines, the lies, the betrayal, and worst of all, Director Han taking control of his empire piece by piece. Tae-jun screamed silently inside his own body. But no sound ever came out. Rain fell against the hospital windows. The VIP floor had grown quiet over the years. Most visitors stopped coming. Dead flowers sat forgotten in dusty corners. The guards outside his room rotated constantly now. Even the nurses avoided eye contact when entering. Because everyone believed the same thing. Kang Tae-jun was already gone. Only the machines remained. Steady, cold, mechanical. Until one night, someone new entered the room. Amara Johnson pushed the hospital cart quietly through the hallway. Exhaustion weighed beneath her eyes. It had been another double shift. Her scrubs were slightly wrinkled, her hair loosely tied back. A half-finished coffee balanced beside patient charts. Most workers hated the VIP floor. Too many powerful people, too many armed guards, too much tension. But Amara needed the extra pay. Her younger brother's medical bills were getting worse, and survival didn't leave room for fear. One nurse stopped her near Tae-jun's room. "Nobody likes going in there," she whispered. "The atmosphere feels wrong." Amara glanced toward the closed door, then shrugged softly. "He's still a patient." The room was dim. Blue light glowed softly from medical monitors. Rain rolled slowly down the giant windows overlooking Seoul. Tae-jun lay motionless beneath white blankets, cold, still, almost ghost-like. Amara adjusted his IV carefully. For a moment, she simply stared at him, even unconscious. He looked intimidating. The scars, the tattoos disappearing beneath his hospital gown, the sharpness of his face, a dangerous man. Yet strangely, he also looked lonely, very lonely. Amara sighed quietly. "You know," she muttered while fixing the blanket near his shoulder, "people are terrified of you around here." Silence. "Honestly?" She gave a tiny smile. "You're probably less stressful than the living patients." Inside the darkness of his coma, Tae-jun heard her. Perfectly. And for the first time in 3 years, something inside him moved. The next night, Amara returned, and the night after that. Eventually, she started bringing books. Sometimes she read quietly. Sometimes she complained about rude doctors. Sometimes she talked about her little brother. She never realized Tae-jun waited for her voice, inside the prison of his body. Her presence became the only thing separating him from madness. One rainy night, she sat beside him, reading softly while thunder rolled across Seoul. Then suddenly she stopped. Her eyes lowered. "I think you're tired," she whispered gently. She carefully brushed damp hair away from his forehead. Such a small touch. But inside the darkness, Tae-jun felt it like fire. Amara smiled sadly. "You can let go if you want to." The monitor beside the bed suddenly spiked. Beep, beep, beep. Amara froze. The machine stabilized again moments later, but she stared at him now, confused. Meanwhile, inside the darkness of his coma, Kang Tae-jun realized something terrifying. He no longer wanted to die. Because of her. Rain tapped softly against the giant hospital windows. The city lights beyond Seoul blurred beneath the storm. Amara sat beside Tae-jun's bed, reading quietly from a worn paperback novel, while cold blue monitor lights flickered across the room. Her voice had become familiar, steady, warm, safe. For weeks now, she had spoken to him like he was still human. Nobody else did. She turned another page. Honestly, she sighed softly. If you wake up one day, you owe me years of therapy for talking to you this much. Silence. Then suddenly, beep! The monitor shifted. Amara froze. Beep, beep. A shaky breath escaped Tae-jun's lips. Her eyes widened. Slowly, very slowly. His fingers twitched. Then his eyes opened. Dark, confused, exhausted, but alive. Amara stumbled backward in shock. Oh my God! Tae-jun stared at her silently. For 3 years, her voice had been the only thing keeping him alive. And now, she was the first thing he saw. Doctors rushed into the room within seconds. Machines beeped, nurses shouted, questions flooded the air. But Tae-jun ignored all of them. His eyes remained locked on Amara, even exhausted and barely conscious. He searched for her. Dr. Ji-won stepped closer carefully. Mr. Kang, can you hear me? A faint nod. Do you know where you are? Another nod. But finally Tae-jun spoke, his voice rough from years of silence. Where is she? The room went still. Amara blinked. Me? Tae-jun's eyes slowly found hers again. Stay. One word, barely whispered. Yet somehow, it felt heavier than anything else in the room. News spread through Seoul before sunrise. Kang Tae-jun was awake. The impossible had happened. Inside luxury boardrooms and underground syndicate offices, fear spread instantly. Because the man everyone believed was dead was coming back. Director Han sat silently in his office while city lights reflected against his whiskey glass. For the first time in years, he looked nervous. Meanwhile, inside the hospital, armed security flooded the VIP floor. Tae-jun's organization returned like a storm. Black suits, luxury cars, cold faces, but Tae-jun barely noticed them. Because every time Amara left the room, he watched the door, waiting for her to come back. Recovery was brutal. 3 years trapped in a coma had weakened his body. The feared Mafia king who once controlled entire organizations now struggled to stand without support, and Tae-jun hated it. One afternoon during rehabilitation, frustration exploded. He slammed his fist against the rail. Again, he snapped. Dr. Ji-won exchanged worried looks with the nurses, but Amara stepped forward calmly. You're trying to win a war with your body, she said softly. That's not how healing works. Tae-jun glared at her. You think I have time to heal? Amara crossed her arms. You think destroying yourself faster helps anybody? Silence. Nobody spoke to Kang Tae-jun like that, yet somehow he listened. A few moments later, she carefully slipped his arm around her shoulder. One step at a time, she whispered, and slowly, he walked. Late one rainy evening, Amara sat beside Tae-jun's bed eating vending machine ramen. The hospital lights were dim. Thunder rolled softly outside. Tae-jun watched her quietly. That can't possibly taste good, he muttered. Amara raised an eyebrow. Funny coming from a man who was unconscious for 3 years. A faint smirk touched his lips. Fair point. She stared at him, then suddenly laughed. Not politely, not carefully. A real laugh. Warm, bright, alive. And for the first time in years, Tae-jun laughed too. The sound surprised even him. But inside that quiet hospital room, for one small moment, he forgot the darkness waiting outside. Weeks later, Tae-jun finally returned to Hasan Group headquarters. The entire executive floor froze when the elevator doors opened. Nobody expected him to walk through them alive. Black suit, cold expression, power restored. The king had returned. Executives immediately stood. Fear filled the room. Director Han smiled carefully. Chairman Kang, what a miracle. Tae-jun stared at him silently, long enough to make the entire room uncomfortable. Then finally, I've been gone for 3 years. His voice remained calm, dangerously calm. Tell me everything that changed while I was asleep. Director Han's smile faded slightly, because for the first time in years, he was no longer in control. Amara never should have entered Tae-jun's world, but by now, it was already too late. One evening, Tae-jun summoned her to the penthouse. Rain fell across Seoul below them, while soft jazz music echoed through the luxury apartment. Amara stood near the windows nervously. You wanted to see me? Tae-jun slid a document across the black marble table. She frowned, then looked down. Marriage contract. Her eyes widened instantly. Absolutely not. Tae-jun leaned back calmly. My enemies know someone helped me survive. That's not my problem. It becomes your problem when they come looking for you. Silence. The media exploded. Cameras flashed endlessly outside the courthouse. Journalists shouted questions. Headlines spread across Seoul within minutes. Kang Tae-jun marries mystery woman. Amara stepped outside beside him, wearing an elegant cream-colored suit. Tae-jun stood beside her in black, powerful, controlled. But when photographers demanded they pose together, he reached for her hand naturally, and for one strange moment beneath the camera flashes, it stopped feeling fake. The penthouse felt impossibly quiet, too large, too luxurious, too intimate. Amara sat awkwardly on the enormous couch while rain shimmered beyond the windows. Tae-jun loosened his tie slowly. Relax, he muttered. I'm not forcing you to share my bedroom. Amara folded her arms. Good. A beat passed. Then Tae-jun glanced toward her. You snore? She blinked. Excuse me? I'm deciding if I regret this arrangement yet. Amara stared at him, then burst out laughing, and slowly, very slowly, something warm began growing between them. A week later, Amara attended a charity gala beside Tae-jun. Luxury chandeliers glowed overhead. Politicians and executives filled the ballroom, and Tae-jun hated every second of it, especially when another man offered Amara champagne while smiling too long. Tae-jun's jaw tightened instantly. Amara noticed. You're glaring. He's annoying. You don't even know him. Tae-jun stepped closer. I know he keeps looking at my wife. The words hit harder than either of them expected, because for the first time, neither of them corrected it. That same night, Tae-jun returned injured after handling unfinished syndicate business. Amara discovered blood staining his shirt. Her face immediately hardened. Sit down. It's nothing. You're literally bleeding on imported furniture. Sit down. He obeyed. Reluctantly. Soft amber lights filled the penthouse while Amara carefully wrapped fresh bandages around his ribs. Tae-jun watched her silently. Why do you care this much? He asked quietly. Amara paused. Because she didn't know anymore. The rainstorm outside grew heavier. Thunder rolled softly through the penthouse. Amara finished wrapping the bandage and looked up. Too close. Tae-jun's hand slowly lifted toward her face. His fingers brushed gently against her cheek. Everything went still. Neither of them moved. The city lights blurred behind them. His voice dropped barely above a whisper. You stayed when everyone else ran. Amara's breathing slowed. Maybe I'm crazy. A faint smile touched his lips. Maybe you saved me. And for one suspended moment, it felt like they might finally kiss. Until suddenly, Tae-jun's phone rang. Reality crashed back instantly, and the moment disappeared. Everything changed 2 nights later. Amara accidentally discovered classified medical files hidden inside Tae-jun's office. Toxicology reports, bank transfers, encrypted names, poison. Her heartbeat slowed. Director Han. The coma had not been an accident. It had been murder, and someone inside the organization helped cover it up. Amara stared at the evidence in horror. Because suddenly, she understood how dangerous Tae-jun's world truly was. Han realized the truth had leaked almost immediately, and desperate men made dangerous decisions. That night, Amara disappeared. Her phone stopped responding. Her apartment sat empty. Even the hospital had no answers. For the first time in years, Kang Tae-jun lost control. He destroyed an entire office searching for information. Glass shattered. Furniture splintered. Min Seok watched silently. Because everyone inside the syndicate understood something terrifying. Tae-jun was no longer fighting for power. He was fighting for her. Rain flooded the industrial docks outside Seoul. Inside an abandoned warehouse, Amara sat restrained beneath flickering lights. Director Han stepped slowly from the shadows, still calm, still elegant. You should have stayed out of this, he sighed. Amara glared at him. You tried to kill him. Han smiled faintly. I built that empire. Then colder. Tae-jun simply forgot who made him powerful. But before he could continue, gunfire exploded outside. The warehouse lights flickered violently, and everyone inside realized the same thing. Tae-jun had arrived. Chaos erupted instantly. Black SUVs flooded the docks. Armed men moved through smoke and rain. Sirens echoed across the harbor. Inside the warehouse, Tae-jun fought through Director Han's security with brutal determination. Not for the empire, not for revenge, for Amara. Because somewhere along the way, she had become the only thing more important than power. Flames spread through the warehouse after an explosion ripped through the building. Smoke filled the air. Steel beams groaned overhead. Tae-jun finally reached Amara. Her eyes widened instantly. You came. He cut the restraints quickly. Always. But suddenly, Director Han emerged holding a gun. Everything froze. Rain hammered against the shattered roof above. Han's expression remained heartbreakingly calm. You were supposed to die 3 years ago, he whispered. Tae-jun slowly stepped in front of Amara protectively, choosing her. Not the empire, not survival. Her. The burning warehouse collapsed around them. Director Han's hands shook for the first time. Because deep down, he finally understood the truth. Tae-jun was no longer afraid to lose power. Love had made him dangerous. The final gunshot echoed through the fire. Director Han collapsed. But moments later, Tae-jun staggered backward. Blood slowly spread across his shirt. Amara's face drained instantly. No. He looked down silently, then back at her, almost apologetic. Rain poured across the streets outside, while emergency sirens screamed through the night. Amara held Tae-jun against her desperately. His breathing weakened. Blood mixed with rainwater beneath them. Stay with me, she cried. Tae-jun's trembling hand slowly touched her face. Even dying, he looked at her gently. Then, finally, for 3 years in darkness, his voice cracked softly. Your voice was the only thing that felt alive. Amara broke completely. Tears mixed with rain as she held him tighter, but Tae-jun only smiled faintly, peacefully, because after years of violence, he had finally found something worth dying for. And slowly, his hand fell still. 7 years passed. Seoul looked different now, softer somehow. One quiet autumn evening, Amara stood beside Tae-jun's grave overlooking the city skyline. Beside her stood a small boy. Dark curls, sharp eyes, the same calm expression Tae-jun once carried. Their son. The little boy placed fresh white lilies near the gravestone carefully. "Was he really scary?" he asked quietly. Amara smiled softly through the sadness. "Sometimes." Then, after a pause, "But he loved us more than anything." The wind moved gently across the cemetery, and somewhere above the city lights of Seoul, it almost felt like Tae-jun was still watching over them. And somewhere beyond the lights of Seoul, beyond the rain, the violence, and the darkness they survived, Kang Tae-jun was never truly gone. Because real love doesn't disappear. It lives on, in the people we protect, the lives we change, and the family we leave behind. And as Amara held her son's hand beneath the autumn sky, for the first time in many years, the world finally felt peaceful. Thank you all for listening. Come back for more stories. And don't forget to like and subscribe.